one of the things that I find interesting in this whole area is that, I mean, you're right, Skip, the education in schools is quite important. I mean, we not too often, luckily, but I mean, we have come across it, is where, people don't understand things like percentages. Well, it's very difficult to talk about pensions or any other financial if you conceptually do not understand what a percentage is. So I mean, there is a fundamental level there, which if it's not there, then it just makes everything else just very, very difficult. But once someone's in the workplace, even if they're just starting out on their career, one of the things that I find very interesting is that companies, generally speaking, and I'm talking sort of the medium to large end here, but they seem to have lots and lots of benefits on offer of all sorts of description. But what they seem particularly bad at is joining those benefits up to the value of the employee. So just to give you a couple of examples, and I was talking earlier about these, is that when it comes to making contributions, people are not educated around, actually, if you take certain benefits that we offer as an employer, that can help with your pension contributions. So, for example, Simon, we were chatting earlier about childcare vouchers, salary sacrifice childcare vouchers. Well, if that's a genuine cost you have, and you can get tax-free childcare vouchers because your employer offers them, then rather than losing that saving in the ether, why don't you actually ring-fence that and say, well, that will be an additional pension contribution, and on the basis that your employer matches that, and of course you're going to get tax relief on it as well because it's a pension contribution, then actually you're compounding up the value that you're getting through these benefits that the employer is actually already offering. It's just they're not joining it up. It's the same with things like share incentive plans. So where people might want to save maybe for the shorter term, not the pension, maybe a share incentive plan would be something that they would like to save in. Again, they get tax relief, but actually after 5 years, if they then decided they wanted to make a pension contribution with whatever those shares are worth, they will get another lot of tax relief because it's a pension contribution. So it's a way of compounding value through benefits that are available. And I think part of the education in the early years should be around how employees can make actually or get far more value out of the benefits that are already on offered if only they were joined up. Even simple things, when we talk about voluntary benefits, so many companies these days offer voluntary benefits because actually it doesn't cost the company anything really. They have to pay a few quid to set it up, but once it's set up, it pretty much runs itself. And these offer 5% off at Tesco's, at Sainsbury's. So particularly if you're a lower earner, then your grocery bill will be a bigger percentage of your outgoings every week and every month. So, okay, maybe you need that 5% saving, but an alternative way to look at it would be to say, well, take that 5% saving that you're only getting because your employer offers these voluntary benefits, put it into your pension. Same thing again, the employer matches, you get the tax relief. So it's thinking a bit more creatively as well and educating people a bit more creatively about how they can generate money. And it's not about, the contribution thing should not be about, because this is a really hard sell, should not be about, well, I know you like going to the pub on a Friday night, but don't go to the pub on the Friday night because, if you put that into your pension in 40 years' time, that is not an easy story to sell. So rather than, not that I'm condoning to people drinking lots, but rather than saying to people, don't go to the pub, there's actually much better ways within the workplace through benefits that are generally offered by those employers that can help generate, ultimately, income in later life.
On Skip's point earlier, I think youngsters should not be allowed to leave school until they've got a certificate in compound interest. Part one of the exam will be how it can work for you, and part two of the exam will be how it can work against you. Yes.
I do think we have to be a bit realistic about education and engagement. I mean, obviously, there's lots of large companies, the higher net worth people who will want to get engaged with their pension saving and will have the time and inclination to do that. But, the whole reason why we introduced auto-enrolment was because we recognised that, trying to get information out about pensions wasn't going to encourage them to join their pension, get them to join their pension scheme in itself. Needed to give them that push to do it, make that the default. And we're going to, you know, in the future, we're going to have millions and millions of people in pension saving coming to retirement. And it's just not, how realistic is it to think that we're going to be able to engage and educate and provide advice to all of those? Lots of those people will be working in, you know, service-related industries where just the likelihood of being able to put someone in front of them is, you know, going to be very unlikely when they're working out in a coffee shop or a supermarket or, you know, doing jobs where that's just not likely to happen. And so I think in the end, there is going to have to be some kind of, like with auto enrollments, and, you know, default options, systems for making sure that, as in sort of kind of big providers like Nest have put in place, systems for making sure at least there is some level of shopping around done on people's behalf, so that the default is better than what often a lot of people get at present. And we've got to be realistic, and the industry needs to try and adapt to an awful lot of people who are going to have smaller, moderate pots who are going to be completely unengaged, whereas at present, due to the history of pensions, the industry is very focused more on the kind of high net worth end, the big employers, and there's a whole wider world out there of pension saving that's going to come to fruition over the next few decades, and we need to gear up for.
And on that point, with auto-enrolment particularly, I mean, ourselves, the pensions regulator and the money advice service, all doing a joined up, you know, sort of unit, so that we can actually help the smaller employers and employees understand about their pensions, but not only their pensions, other monetary matters as well, so that everything is captured and taken up. I mean, I have a lot of sympathy for not just the industry but employers as well, because cost, when it comes to education, is, you know, a massive issue at this moment in time because of money constraints. We are talking to people within the industry as to how best we can do it. I mean, there are organisations out there such as us who are funded. We won't charge for our service, so, you know, anything we can do to help and make things work, as well as, you know, you've got the money advice service, you've got the money advice trust, you've got charities out there that can help with money issues as well, which, you know, linking that into employers, to other stakeholders, to the industry, that we can all do a joined up approach where we all give to help at the end of the day, the employer and the member, the man on the street, will all benefit. So if we can work together to make it as easy as possible, I think it's only a win-win for us. But I think you hit the nail on the head with the education. I mean, with the way that the country is, we live in a society that, you know, it's proven we don't necessarily want to save. You know, we would like to spend money. You know, we need to educate, and how we do that is the tricky one.
Picking up on what Jonathan, you summarised all of the benefits that could be bundled together to enhance or compound interest, the overall effect. I find it's disruptive, it's opaque that the Treasury, and that's the Treasury with a capital T, provide these tax breaks in all sorts of different pots. Why can we not? You know, we've had to create auto-enrollment to actually, which is horrendously complicated in itself. Why can we not have the tax subsidy for planning for retirement in one pot? Call it a mega ISA, 50,000 a year, rather than having limits, lifetime, I mean, even for people who are relatively sophisticated, this is not a simple subject. Goodness knows what it's going to be like for the average person in auto-enrollment. But that's absolutely essential that we have something like auto-enrollment. And again, why should we persevere? And I think certainly if we think that auto-enrollment is to a large extent based on the Australian model, you have to feel encouraged, because the Australians were initially extremely reluctant. But once the per annum rates started ramping up and people started seeing no longer £37,000 average pot at 100,000, the Australians have had to row back and say, well, you can't take all of that when you retire. You've actually got to leave some of it in there, because you're suddenly leaving a hole that we were trying to prevent in the first place. So I think that there's an element, a strong element probably, coming through what we're doing, that people will start to get engaged through communications, and obviously people will adapt and adopt, and like people like the NAPF will help the smaller firms to do a lot more to, if you like, inherit the best from the bigger schemes. And I feel very encouraged that with the steps that we're doing, or the road we're going down, is the right way to go. But we won't get there overnight. It'll take us a little while to get there. And other people are going to have to play a role. Education, for sure. But all I was saying earlier is I'd like to see that education start a lot earlier and get people engaged so they actually can do their times table and work out a percentage and understand compound interest.